The morning sun hung low over San Diego Bay, casting golden light across the waterfront district. It was 9:47 a.m. on a Saturday in late March, and Harbor Street Calf was packed with the usual weekend crowd, families enjoying brunch, tourists snapping photos of the marina, joggers stopping for coffee after their morning run. James "Ghost" Morrison sat at an outdoor table with his 7-year-old son, Tyler. The nickname Ghost had stuck from his Navy SEAL days, 12 years of covert operations. 3 deployments, more missions than he could count, but those days were behind him now. 3 years retired. Medically discharged after a helicopter crash in Afghanistan left him with a titanium rod in his left leg and nightmares he couldn't shake. Now he was just James, a single father trying to give his son a normal life. "Dad, can I get the chocolate chip pancakes?" Tyler asked, his green eyes bright with hope. He had his mother's eyes, Sarah, who'd lost her battle with cancer 2 years ago. Every time James looked at his son, he saw her. "You had chocolate chip pancakes last week," James said with a slight smile. "How about we try something new?" "But Dad, blueberry pancakes. They're good for you. Antioxidants." Tyler made a face. "What's an antioxidant thing?" "Something that makes you strong. Like your old man." James flecked his arm playfully, making Tyler laugh. The waitress came over, a college-aged girl named Ashley, who always remembered Tyler's name. "Morning, Morrison boys. What'll it be today?" As James ordered, he did what he always did without thinking, scanned the area. Old habits from his SEAL days. Exits 3. Potential threats, none obvious. Civilians, approximately 47 within visual range. His therapist said he needed to stop doing this, that he was home now, safe. But James had learned the hard way that safe was an illusion. Threats could materialize anywhere, anytime. That's when he saw her. A small girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, sitting on the concrete barrier near the marina entrance. She wore clothes that were too big for her, a faded gray hoodie and torn jeans that had seen better days. Her dark hair was tangled, her face smudged with dirt. A backpack that looked older than she was sat at her feet, homeless. James had seen enough street kids in his 3 years back in civilian life to recognize the signs. The way she sat very still, trying to be invisible. The way her eyes constantly moved, tracking threats and opportunities. The defensive hunch of her shoulders. But something about her was different. She wasn't panhandling, wasn't asking for money or food. She was just watching. And she was watching James. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Hers were an unusual shade of amber brown, intense and old beyond her years. Then she quickly looked away, as if caught doing something wrong. James felt an odd tug in his chest but dismissed it. Plenty of homeless kids in this area. He couldn't help them all. "Dad?" Tyler tugged at his sleeve. "You okay?" "Yeah, buddy. Just thinking." James turned his attention back to his son. "So tell me about that science project you're working on." Tyler launched into an enthusiastic explanation about volcanoes and baking soda, and James listened with half his attention while the other half kept drifting back to the girl on the barrier. She was still there, still watching, but watching what? The food arrived. Tyler's blueberry pancakes came with a side of whipped cream, which James knew was Ashley's way of compensating for the lack of chocolate chips. Tyler dug in happily, while James worked on his omelette, trying to focus on this normal Saturday morning with his son. That's when the black SUV pulled up. James noticed it immediately, the way it stopped abruptly at the curb, engine still running, tinted windows, no parking lights. His internal alarm system, honed by years of combat, started screaming. Two men got out, late 30s, both wearing jeans and hoodies despite the mild weather. Too much bulk around their waistbands, concealed weapons. Their movements were purposeful, coordinated. They weren't tourists, and they were looking Tyler. James's hand immediately went to his side, where he used to carry his sidearm. But he'd stopped carrying 3 months ago. His therapist said he was making his PTSD worse, that he needed to learn to feel safe without a weapon. Right now he regretted that decision. "Kyler," James said quietly, his voice dropping into the calm, controlled tone he'd used on missions. "Stay close to me. Don't move." "Dad, what?" "Trust me." The two men approached the cafe, weaving through the outdoor tables. James positioned himself between them and Tyler, his body automatically shifting into a defensive stance. His leg ached. It always did when tension spiked, but adrenaline overrode the pain. The first man reached into his jacket. James's muscles coiled, ready to move, to fight, to protect his son at all costs. But before anything could happen, the homeless girl moved. She burst from her position on the barrier like a sprinter from starting blocks, running straight toward the cafe. James's combat-trained mind processed it in slow motion. The girl's trajectory would put her directly between Tyler and the armed men. What the hell was she doing? "Gun!" someone screamed. First man pulled a pistol from his jacket. The second man grabbed for Tyler, but James was already moving, sweeping his son behind him. Other customers screamed, ducked, ran. Tables overturned, coffee cups shattered. "Get down!" James roared, his SEAL instincts taking over completely. The first shot cracked through the morning air. The homeless girl collided with Tyler, knocking him further behind James. The second shot followed immediately, then the third, then the fourth. Crack, 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 crack. James heard each one with the crystal clarity of combat, the sharp report of a 9mm, the whistle of bullets cutting through air, the wet thud of impact. But the impacts weren't hitting Tyler. They were hitting the girl. She'd thrown herself in front of his son, a human shield made of bones and courage. 4 bullets found her small body, shoulder, chest, side, leg. She gasped with each impact but didn't fall, didn't move away. She kept herself between Tyler and the shooters. "No." James lunged forward, his training screaming that he should disarm the shooter, neutralize the threat. But he was 3 seconds too far, his injured leg slowing him just enough. The would-be kidnappers saw James coming, saw the way he moved despite his limp, the warrior's focus in his eyes. They recognized danger when they saw it. The first man fired one more wild shot that went wide, then both men scrambled back to their SUV. The vehicle peeled away, tires screaming, disappearing into traffic before James could even process the license plate. But James didn't care about the attackers. Not right now. He dropped to his knees beside the girl, who'd finally collapsed onto the concrete, her small body curled around Tyler protectively. "Tyler, Tyler, are you hit?" James pulled his son out from under the girl, running his hands over him frantically. No blood, no wounds. Terrified but unharmed. "I'm okay, Dad. I'm okay." But Tyler's voice broke. James turned to the girl. She lay on her side, 4 entry wounds visible through her shredded clothing. Blood was pooling beneath her, spreading across the concrete like spilled paint. "Oh God," James breathed. No. He immediately went into combat medic mode, training he'd received years ago for exactly this kind of situation. He pressed his hands against the worst bleeding, the chest wound that was bubbling with each of her shallow breaths. Tension, pneumothorax, collapsed lung. "Someone call 911, James shouted. "Now!" Ashley, the waitress, was already on her phone crying. Other patrons had their phones out, some filming, some calling for help. The chaos of civilian panic surrounded them. But James blocked it all out. His entire world narrowed to this dying child bleeding out in his hands. "Stay with me," James commanded, his voice firm but not unkind. "You hear me? Stay with me. What's your name?" The girl's amber-brown eyes opened, unfocused and glassy with shock. She tried to speak but coughed instead, blood flecking her lips. "Don't talk. Save your strength." James applied more pressure, but there was so much blood, too much. "Tyler, give me your shirt. Now." Tyler immediately stripped off his t-shirt, hands shaking. James wadded it up and pressed it against the leg wound while maintaining pressure on the chest. "Why?" James asked, not expecting an answer, but needing to understand. "Why did you do that? You don't even know us." The girl's eyes focused on him for a brief moment, really focused, like she was seeing past his face to something deeper. "Had to ... double quotes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Couldn't let them ... couldn't let them what? Take my son." She nodded weakly. "Saw them ... yesterday ... watching ... planning ... She coughed again, more blood. "Had to ... no ... double quads." James felt ice slide down his spine. You knew they were coming." Another weak nod. "Been watching ... you too. For days ... why? For day two, for days ... Why were you watching us? But days ... why? Why were you watching us?" But the girl's eyes were rolling back. She was royal, you was Sue's ... Wars. She was fading. "No, hey." James patted her face gently. "You're going to make it. Stay with me. Dad, is she dying? You're going to be okay." Tyler sobbed. "You hear me?" Clutching his father's arm. "No," James said firmly, as much to convince himself as his son. "She's not dying. I won't let her." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. James kept pressure on the wounds, kept talking to the girl, kept trying to anchor her to consciousness. "What's your name?" he asked again. "Come on, tell me your name." Her lips moved. James leaned closer. "Layla," she breathed. "My name is Layla ... Layla." "Okay, Layla, that's beautiful. You're doing great, Layla. Just keep breathing, keep fighting. My dad ... Double quotes. Layla's eyes found his face again, and James saw tears mixing with the blood. "He was ... like you ... double quotes like me." "What do you mean?" "Soldier ... Navy ... He saved ... She coughed, struggling. "Saved people ... like you ... Double quotes. James froze. His hands were still working, still applying pressure, but his mind was racing. He looked at her face Navy more closely. Soldier, past the dirt and blood, saved people, past the trauma and pain. He looked at her eyes, those unusual amber-brown eyes that had seemed so familiar, and something clicked in his memory. A face from years ago, a mission in Iraq, a translator who'd saved James's life when an ambush went sideways. Rashid al-Hakim, who had amber-brown eyes just like these. "Your father," James said slowly, his voice shaking. "What was your father's name?" But Layla's eyes had closed. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, going into shock. "Layla. Layla." The ambulance screeched to a halt at the curb. Paramedics rushed over with equipment and a stretcher. James was pushed aside as they took over, but he couldn't stop staring at the girl. At Layla, who might be the daughter of the man who'd saved his life 8 years ago. The man James had failed to save in return. "Sir, we need information," one of the paramedics said urgently. "Is this your daughter?" "No, she's homeless, I think." I don't know her. Next of kin? Emergency contacts? I don't know. I don't know anything about her. The paramedics loaded Layla onto the stretcher, working rapidly, -4 lines, oxygen mask, trauma dressings. They moved with practiced efficiency toward the ambulance. Wait, James called. Which hospital? UC San Diego Medical. Are you a family? James looked at Tyler, who was pale and shaking, covered in someone else's blood. My son, there's another ambulance coming for witnesses and the uninjured. Sir, we have to go now. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and the vehicle pulled away, sirens blaring. James stood in the middle of Harbor Street, his hands covered in blood, his son clinging to him, surrounded by police cars and shocked witnesses, and the remnants of a normal Saturday morning that had turned into a nightmare. But all he could think about was Layla's face, her eyes, her words, my dad. He was like you, Navy. He saved people, double, quotes, 8 years ago. Mission in Fallujah, Iraq. An ambush that went wrong. Rashid al-Hakim, their local translator and guide, throwing himself in front of James when an insurgent opened fire, saving James's life. James had carried Rashid out of that firefight, but not fast enough. Rashid had died 2 days later from his wounds, but not before making James promise something. My family, they have visa applications pending, America, please. Make sure they make it to America, Keep them safe, double, quotes, James had tried. God knows he'd tried. He'd filed reports, contacted immigration officials, used every connection he had. But the bureaucracy moved slowly, and Iraq was chaos. He'd lost track of Rashid's family in the system, and eventually, buried under his own trauma and losses, James had stopped looking. Now, standing in the aftermath of another shooting, staring at the blood on his hands, James realized he'd made a terrible mistake. Rashid's family hadn't made it to America safely. They'd made it to America homeless. Dad. Tyler's voice was small and scared. Who is she? Why did she save me? James picked up his son, holding him tight, feeling the weight of too many failures pressing down on his shoulders. I don't know yet, buddy, James said quietly. But I'm going to find out, and I'm going to make sure she's okay. I promise. A promise he should have kept 8 years ago. A promise he wouldn't fail to keep this time. The emergency room at UC San Diego Medical was controlled chaos. James sat in the waiting area with Tyler, both of them still covered in dried blood. A detective had already taken their statements, and social services had sent someone to check on Tyler's well-being. But James couldn't sit still. His leg throbbed, his hands shook with adrenaline come down, and his mind kept cycling back to those amber-brown eyes. Mr. Morrison, a surgeon in blue scrubs, emerged from the double doors. I'm Dr. Patel. You're the one who brought in Layla. James stood immediately. How is she? Critical, but stable. 4 gunshot wounds, 1 through the shoulder, 1 in the chest that collapsed her lung, 1 in her side that nicked her liver, and 1 in her thigh that narrowly missed the femoral artery. She's incredibly lucky to be alive. Can I see her? She's in recovery. Heavily sedated. But Mr. Morrison, Dr. Patel's expression became troubled. We ran her fingerprints through the system because we had no ID, no guardian. She's in the database as a missing person. James's blood ran cold. Missing? From where? An immigration detention facility in Texas, 3 years ago. She was 9 years old when she disappeared from the system. Detention facility. She's a refugee, Iraqi refugee. She and her mother entered the country in 2018 on humanitarian visas, but there were complications with their paperwork. The mother was detained, and Layla was placed in a temporary shelter. Then one day, Layla just vanished, walked away. They'd been looking for her for 3 years. James felt his knees weaken. Iraqi, refugee, 3 years homeless. The mother, James said urgently. What happened to the mother? Dr. Patel checked his tablet. According to the file, Amira Al-Hakim. She died in detention 2.5 years ago. Medical complications from injuries sustained overseas. No other family in the US. Al-Hakim. James closed his eyes, the pieces falling into place like shrapnel in his chest. I know who she is, James said quietly. Her father saved my life in Iraq. I promised him I'd keep his family safe. And I failed. That evening, James sat alone in Layla's ICU room. Tyler was with James's sister, being spoiled and reassured. The police had increased patrols around their house. The kidnappers were still at large. Layla looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. Her dark hair had been washed by the nurses, revealing a face that was painfully thin. How long had she been surviving on the streets? How had a 12-year-old child survived alone for 3 years? James pulled out his phone and scrolled to a folder of old photos he rarely looked at, pictures from his deployment days. He found the one he was looking for. Rashid Al-Hakim, smiling at the camera, standing next to James in front of a Humvee. Rashid had been 32 then, with a wife and a 9-year-old daughter. He'd worked as a translator because he loved America, believed in the mission, wanted a better life for his family. And James had failed him. I'm sorry, James whispered to the unconscious girl. I'm so sorry, Layla. I tried to find you. I tried to keep my promise. I didn't try hard enough. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, his old SEAL teammate who now worked in private security. Got some intel on your shooters. They're connected to a trafficking ring. Target was your son, Navy SEAL kid, single father. Would have been a high-value ransom. You want me to dig deeper? James texted back. How did they know about Tyler? Marcus's response came quickly. Been surveilling you for weeks. You've been on their radar since you testified in that federal case last year. They wanted payback. James remembered the case, a human trafficking operation he'd stumbled onto while doing security consultation work. He'd had testified, put 3 people away, and now they'd come for his son. But Layla had known. Somehow she'd known. Saw them, yesterday, watching, planning, she'd been watching the Watchers. A homeless child with no resources, no help, had recognized the threat and positioned herself to intervene, just like her father had done for James 8 years ago. You're his daughter, aren't you? James said softly. Rasida's little girl, the one he showed me pictures of. You were 9 then. He said you loved to draw, that you wanted to be an artist. Layla's eyelids flickered, but didn't open. Your father was the bravest man I ever met, James continued. He didn't hesitate when that insurgent opened fire. He just moved, put himself between me and the bullets, just like you did for Tyler. James leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I made him a promise. I promised I'd make sure you and your mother made it to America safely. I tried, Layla. I really did. But I got hurt, got discharged, got lost in my own problems. And I stopped looking. I stopped trying. His voice cracked. That's on me. But I'm not going to fail you again. You hear me? When you wake up, you're not going back to the streets. You're not going to be alone anymore. I don't care what I have to do, or who I have to fight. You're family. You've always been family. I just didn't know it until today. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. James stayed in that chair all night, keeping watch over Rashid's daughter, the way he should have been doing for the past 3 years. Layla woke 2 days later. James was there, as he had been every day, when her eyes fluttered open. She looked around the ICU room with confusion, then panicked, trying to sit up. Hey, it's okay, James said gently, standing, but keeping his distance. You're safe. You're in the hospital. You were shot, remember? Layla's amber eyes focused on him, and recognition flashed across her face. Tyler. Is he, ... double quotes, he's fine. Thanks to you. Not a scratch on him. Layla relaxed slightly but remained tense, like an animal ready to bolt. How long have I been here? 2 days. You had surgery. The doctors say you're going to make a full recovery. I can't pay for this. Already. Taken care of. I need to leave. Layla tried to sit up again, wincing with pain. I can't stay here. They'll find me. They'll put me back in, Layla. James moved closer, his voice calm. I know who you are. I know about your father. I know about the detention center. And I know you've been on the streets for 3 years. Layla froze, her eyes wide with fear. How your father saved my life in Fallujah. Rashid al-Hakim. He took a bullet meant for me, and with his last breath, he made me promise to keep you and your mother safe. Tears welled in Layla's eyes. You knew my father. I knew him. And I failed him. I failed you and your mother. But I'm not going to fail you anymore. My mother, ... double quotes. Layla's voice broke. They told me she was sick, but they wouldn't let me see her. And then one day, they just said she was gone, dead. And I was alone. So you ran. What choice did I have? They were going to send me back to Iraq, or put me in foster care with people who didn't want me. I had nothing, no one, so I ran, and I've been running ever since. James pulled a chair close to her bed. Why did you save Tyler? You could have walked away. Let it happen. Got your revenge on me for failing your family. Layla looked at him with those eyes that were too old, too wise for a 12-year-old. Because Tyler isn't you. He's just a kid. And my father. He always said that children are innocent, that they deserve protection no matter what. He died protecting you because he believed in that. I couldn't let his sacrifice mean nothing. You're 12 years old, Layla. You shouldn't have had to make that choice. I've been making impossible choices since I was 9. Layla's voice was hard. That's what happens when the world forgets about you. I'm not forgetting about you anymore, James said firmly. From today, you're not alone. You're coming home with me. Tyler wants to meet you properly. He calls you his guardian angel. I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. James's voice took on the commanding tone of his SEAL days. Your father gave his life for mine. You gave yours for my sons. That makes you family. And I take care of my family. No arguments. Layla stared at him for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to be family anymore. Then we'll figure it out together, James said. One day at a time. For the first time in 3 years, Layla stopped running. 3 weeks later, Layla sat in James's living room, feeling like a stranger in her own skin. The house was nice, not huge but comfortable. A real home with real furniture and family photos on the walls. It felt surreal after years of sleeping in doorways and alleys. Tyler bounded into the room carrying a stack of books. Layla, I found some books I think you'd like. Dad said your dad told him you liked to draw, so I got some art books from the library. Layla took the books carefully, as if they might disappear. Thank you, Tyler. Can you show me your drawings sometime? I'm not very good at art, but I think it's cool. Before Layla could answer, James came in from the kitchen. Kyla, give Layla some space, buddy. She's still recovering. I'm okay, Layla said quietly. And she was, physically, at least. The wounds were healing. but everything else felt raw and uncertain. James had been patient. He'd set up a room for her, small but clean and warm, with an actual bed and clean sheets. He'd taken her shopping for clothes, which had been overwhelming after years of wearing whatever she could find. He'd enrolled her in school, arranged for tutors to help her catch up, scheduled therapy appointments. It was everything she'd dreamed of during those cold nights on the streets. So why did it feel so terrifying? "I'm going to help Dad make dinner," Tyler announced. "We're making spaghetti. Do you like spaghetti?" I don't remember," Layla admitted. Tyler's face fell. "You don't remember spaghetti? When you're hungry enough, you eat whatever you can find," Layla said. "You stop thinking about what you like or don't like." The room went quiet. James exchanged a look with Tyler. "Well," James said gently, "tonight you get to find out if you like spaghetti, and if you don't, we'll make something else. Deal?" Layla nodded, overwhelmed by the simple kindness of the offer. That night, after dinner, spaghetti was good. She discovered Layla helped Tyler with his homework while James cleaned up. It felt almost normal, almost like a family. But when bedtime came, and Layla was alone in her room, the panic set in. She'd survived on the streets by staying alert, by never sleeping deeply, by always being ready to run. But here, in this soft bed, with locked doors and security systems, her body didn't know how to relax. Every creak of the house made her jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. At 2 a.m., James found her sitting on the floor of her room, back against the wall, eyes wide and sleepless. "Can't sleep?" he asked from the doorway. Layla shook her head. James came in and sat on the floor across from her, keeping a respectful distance. "Want to talk about it? The bed is too soft. The room is too quiet. I keep thinking someone's going to come through the door, or the walls are closing in, or ... double quotes. Layla's voice shook. "I don't know how to do this. How to be normal." "There's no normal," James said. "There's just that what works for you. When I came back from Afghanistan, I couldn't sleep in a bed either. Too exposed, too vulnerable. I slept on the floor for months. Really. My therapist said it was my body's way of staying in survival mode. It takes time to convince yourself you're actually safe." James paused. "You want to know what helped me?" "What?" "Tyler. Taking care of him forced me to function, to be present, to slowly rebuild trust in the world. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't easy. But it happened." Layla pulled her knees to her chest. "What if I can't do it? What if I'm too broken?" "You're not broken, Layla. You're surviving. There's a difference." James's voice was firm. "You survived 3 years on the streets as a kid. You identified a threat to Tyler before anyone else did. You took 4 bullets and lived. You're one of the strongest people I have ever met. And trust me, I've met a lot of strong people. I don't feel strong. I feel scared all the time. Being scared doesn't mean you're not strong. It means you're human." They sat in silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" Layla said finally. "Anything. Why? Why are you really doing this? Is it guilt? Debt to my father? Do you feel like you owe me?" James considered his answer carefully. At first, yeah, maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was debt. But now, he met her eyes. "Now it's because you're a kid who deserves a home. Because Tyler looks at you like you hung the moon. Because when I watch you try so hard to be okay, I see the same thing I saw in your father, courage, even when you're terrified. That's why." Layla felt tears building but fought them back. She'd cried enough in her life. "Your father told me once," James continued, "that the measure of a man isn't how he treats people who can help him. It's how he treats people who can't. You couldn't help yourself, Layla. You were lost in a broken system, forgotten. But you still chose to save a stranger's child. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are, and who your parents raised you to be." This time, Layla couldn't stop the tears. They came silently, streaming down her face as years of grief and fear and loneliness finally found release. James didn't move closer, didn't try to hug her. He just sat there, a steady presence, letting her cry. "It's okay," he said softly. "Let it out. You've been holding it in for 3 years. That's too long." When Layla finally calmed down, exhausted from emotion, James stood up, tried to get some sleep. "And Layla, if you need anything, if the nightmares come, if the panic hits, if you just need someone to remind you you're safe, you knock on my door. Anytime. I mean that." "Okay," Layla whispered. "And if the bed's too soft, sleep on the floor. Whatever works." After he left, Layla grabbed her pillow and blanket and made a nest on the floor against the wall where she could see the door. It felt safer, more familiar. And for the first time in 3 years, Layla slept through the night. 6 months later, James stood in the back of the middle school auditorium, watching Layla accept an award for her artwork. She'd transformed in those months, still thin, still carrying shadows in her eyes, but healthier, stronger, almost smiling. Tyler sat next to James, clapping enthusiastically. "That's my sister," he whispered loudly, making several parents turn and smile. Sister. Tyler had started calling Layla that 2 months ago, and she'd cried happy tears. After the ceremony, they went out for ice cream, a new family tradition. Layla ordered chocolate chip mint, Tyler got cookie dough, and James stuck with vanilla. "So," James said casually, "I've been talking to my lawyer about something." Layla looked up from her ice cream, wary. "What kind of something?" "The adoption kind." Layla froze. Tyler grinned. "Dad's gonna adopt you. We're gonna be a real family." "We already are a family," James said, looking at Layla. "But this makes it official, legal, permanent. If you want it, double." Quotes Layla's voice caught. "You want to adopt me?" "I do, if you're okay with it. I know I can never replace your parents, and I'm not trying to. But I can give you a home, a future, a family. You'd be Layla Morrison, Tyler's sister. My daughter." Layla set down her ice cream, her hands shaking. "Why? I'm not easy. I have nightmares. I freak out in crowds. I can't sleep in beds." "I'm your family," James interrupted gently. "That's all that matters. The rest? We'll figure it out together, just like we have been." Tyler grabbed Layla's hand. "Please say yes, please. I want you to be my real sister forever." Layla looked at these two people who'd taken her in, who'd been patient with her trauma, who'd slowly taught her to trust again. She thought about her father, who'd sacrificed himself for James. She thought about her mother, who'd wanted nothing more than a safe life for her daughter in America. And she thought about the scared 9-year-old girl who'd run from the detention center, convinced she'd die alone on the streets. That girl had been wrong. "Yes," Layla whispered. "I want that. I want to be a Morrison." Tyler whooped and hugged her. James reached across the table and squeezed her hand, his eyes bright with emotion. "Welcome home, Layla," he said. Officially. 1 year later, Layla Morrison, age 13, stood at the front of her 8th grade class for show and tell. She held up a drawing she'd made, a portrait of a man in military fatigues with amber-brown eyes. "This is my biological father, Rashid al-Hakim," she said clearly. "He was a translator for the US military in Iraq. He died saving someone's life. A Navy SEAL named James Morrison." She held up another drawing. James in his SEAL uniform. "James adopted me a year ago. He's my dad now. And this," she held up a third drawing of Tyler, "is my little brother, Tyler. "They're my family." The class was silent, listening. "A lot of people helped me get here," Layla continued. "Doctors, therapists, teachers, social workers. But the two people who saved me were my fathers. My biological father taught me that protecting others is worth any sacrifice. My adoptive father taught me that it's never too late for a second chance." She paused, gathering her courage. "I was homeless for 3 years. I lived on the streets. I ate from trash cans. I slept in doorways. I thought I'd die alone and forgotten. But then I made a choice to save a little boy I didn't even know. And that choice changed everything." Layla looked at her teacher, who was wiping her eyes. "So my message is this: no matter how dark things get, you always have a choice. You can choose kindness. You can choose courage. You can choose to help someone, even when it costs you everything. Because sometimes that choice saves more than one life. Sometimes it saves yours too." The class erupted in applause. Layla smiled, a real, genuine smile, and sat down. After school, James picked her up, as he always did. Tyler was already in the back seat, chattering about his day. "How'd the presentation go?" James asked as Layla buckled in. "Good. I think I made Mrs. Patterson cry, though. Happy tears or sad tears? Both, probably." James smiled. "Your father, Rashid, would be proud of you. You know that, right?" "I know," Layla said softly. "And I think my mum would be happy. That I found you guys. That I'm safe." "We found each other," James corrected. "And we're lucky we did." As they drove home through San Diego traffic, past the marina where everything had changed a year and a half ago, Layla looked at her family, her brother telling stories, her father listening patiently, and felt something she hadn't felt since she was 9 years old: peace. She'd taken 4 bullets for a stranger's child and lost everything. But in losing everything, she'd found what mattered most: a home, a family, a future, and a father who kept his promises.